there never would be again.
Who is Elie Wiesel? Elie Wiesel is a Nobel Peace Prize winner, famous for his novel Night. He is a survivor of the Holocaust, losing his mother and younger sister in the tragic genocide. This last clip shows Wiesel delivering his speech, The Perils of Indifference, at the Millennium Celebration in 1999, where speakers were invited by President Bill Clinton and First Lady Hillary Clinton to share and commemorate new ideas and the creativity of American people in the upcoming millennium.
Wiesel came to share his story and perspective of the consequences of choosing indifference in times of crisis, tying in his experience surviving the Holocaust to his theme of rejecting indifference that took the lives of many who otherwise could have been saved. In his speech, he addresses the primary audience, the American government, who he wishes responded differently in his time of crisis. His focus was not limited to the government, however. Wiesel seeks to spread his message to anyone with the opportunity to fight injustice.
One thing that really makes Wiesel's speech effective is his tone. One thing his audience can see is that there are many tone shifts throughout the speech. Wiesel begins with a grateful tone, opening his speech by expressing his gratitude towards the United States government for being the group who liberated him.
I stand before you, Mr. President, and I am filled with a profound and abiding gratitude to the American people.
When he introduces the main idea of the speech, this tone of gratitude quickly shifts towards condemning, which is clearly the dominant tone throughout the speech. Wiesel essentially incriminates the American government and past President Franklin D. Roosevelt for being too passive in their response to the horrors occurring in Germany during the Holocaust.
And our only miserable consolation was that we believed that Auschwitz and Treblinka were closely guarded secrets. If they knew, we thought, surely those leaders would have moved heaven and earth to intervene. And now we knew that the Pentagon knew, the State Department knew.
Wiesel's final tone is urgent, serving as a call to action to have the opportunity to speak up or take action against injustice. As we've learned, Wiesel's speech was written for the Millennium Lecture Series, where speakers came to share inventive and creative ideas to carry into the incoming millennium. Wiesel's final tone urges people to respond differently than they had in the previous millennium and reject indifference when suffering people are in need. What else makes this speech so effective? Wiesel utilizes a number of rhetorical devices to convey his message, starting with parallel structure.
Indifference elicits no response. Indifference is not a response. Indifference is not a beginning. Indifference is always the friend of the enemy.
Wiesel's use of parallel structure allows for emphasis of his logical thought flow, condemning indifference for never being constructive and always favoring the harmful side. Condemning? That sounds like the main tone. In addition to parallelism, Wiesel utilizes anecdote to establish his credibility as he shares his first-hand experience as a victim of indifference.
Over there, behind the black gates of Auschwitz, the most tragic of all prisoners were the Muselmänner, as they were called. Wrapped in their torn blankets, they would sit or lie on the ground, staring vacantly into space, unaware of who or where they were, strangers to their surroundings.
In his anecdote, he also creates an emotional appeal by illustrating how truly terrible the conditions at Auschwitz were. Finally, Wiesel uses rhetorical questions to truly impress his message on the audience and fulfill his overall purpose of the speech.
Does it mean that we have learned from the past? Does it mean that society has changed? Have we really learned from our experiences? Are we less insensitive to the plight of victims of ethnic cleansing and other forms of injustices in places near and far? What about the children? Do we hear their pleas? Do we feel their pain, their agony?
These rhetorical questions serve as a call to action, begging the audience to choose to stand up when injustice is present and reject the temptations of indifference. The last rhetorical questions about the children play on the emotional side of the audience, forcing them to consider who the victims of indifference truly are and how they are made to suffer.
This ties into his purpose, which is to use his platform as a speaker at this event to encourage the audience to take a side, take action, and reject the temptations of indifference in situations where injustice is present. He forces the audience to consider how they will choose to react in the upcoming millennium when opportunities to stand up and fight appear, and hopes they will apply what he shared about the importance of rejecting indifference into their daily lives. Overall, the speech was effective because of the credibility of Elie Wiesel as a first-hand victim,
his condemning tone directed towards indifference,
and his use of rhetorical devices,
all of which served to fulfill his purpose of inspiring Americans to take action and not give in to indifference.
Overall, we give the effectiveness of his speech a 10 out of 10.